Hello, I'm Gavin. I should probably put my name in the title just so I don't trick people into thinking they will get a Jacob Petrucci. Oh, so the topic losing the jobs and unemployment because of AI. I got to talk with a coworker. I tried to spark the conversation with coworkers yesterday. Let's see. I hear that the artificial intelligence will be able to do the job of coders, software engineers, and then the people who have more knowledge kind of understand what that means. In software engineering, you have different types of software engineers. Like sometimes I remember a boss saying, like, well, that person is not a software engineer, they're a coder or they're a developer. So, but I was wondering if the engineering managers would get replaced before the software engineers. And engineering managers, having a good engineering manager is nice. And I think it connects in with this idea that you know Donald Trump and Elon Musk are attacking the bureaucracy, and so middle managers everywhere. I mean, what would the world look like if we could just reduce the number of middle managers everywhere, such that those who do good work are just able to be guided and directed. So yeah, that's my thought is that the middleman, the bureaucracy, the managers, that they are the ones who will lose their jobs, or maybe they're the ones who should lose their jobs the most. That should be the job that gets replaced first. The people who, yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about what a good engineering manager is. I am a software engineer at work. I can't jump in right now. Understandable. Yeah, I remember working in a cubicle, in a cube farm, and just listening to Joe Rogan. So I get it. Sometimes you can't hop in and participate. My role has moved from software engineer to something called as a lead something or another. And so there's actually my chief technology officer, my CTO. He told there was a old I had a coworker I worked with for a long time, and he mentioned my name to the chief CTO. Is like, can I work with Gavin? And he told him that I'm not a coder anymore. So, um, and actually, is quite interesting. I'm like, and maybe I was a little surprised, but I'm cool with that, not being a coder, despite that I'm using large language models to create code to help the business. But when you're not a coder, you get to go and try and encourage people try to help motivate the priorities of certain things over other things, lay out best practices. What I find myself doing mostly is just cleaning up a bunch of junk. So I'm not a coder, but I generate code that go and clean up because everybody else is just moving fast and creating tech debt, and I get to come in and clean up the mess sometimes. But yeah, would the AI replace me? That's the question, and I think the answer is yes. Like I'm really not that great. The AI is better than me at a lot of things, including just like one of the things a manager does. They do one-on-ones with like their direct reports, and a good manager will encourage and inspire, will lead, the and is a bit like something like a therapist and a psychologist and a coach and a teacher. And but I think an AI can do that better than me, and I wonder, can it do that better than all these other managers who maybe aren't so good at doing it? To learn about the strengths and weaknesses and interests of the people reporting to them, and then combine that with what the customer wants, and then help in prioritizing, organizing, setting up meetings, taking notes, doing one-on-ones. I'm thinking the manager might be the ones who get replaced before the coders do. And imagine that. What if like all the middleman bureaucrats that like what if Elon Musk is able to help slowly just replace all of these people in government and bureaucracy with AI agents? And he has to do it slowly so he doesn't get killed. I listened to him talk to Joe Rogan, and that's a good thing. Don't move so fast they kill you. Um, and it's cool that he understood that why people might would want to kill him, like, and he wasn't even angry about it. It's just like kind of makes sense why people would want to kill him. So Yoav, what we do as software engineers, we just have to stay on top of the latest tech. Being able to use the technology to be a force multiplier, that is good. Even if we lose our jobs. And so I'm going to tell a little story about how I was able to use my skills in my community, because whether we lose our jobs or keep our jobs as individuals, we can take our knowledge and we can be of service in our community. And so, my son likes soccer. I've been coaching. This is like my third season of coaching, and now I'm coaching two teams. But I created a little app. I used artificial intelligence and spent 10 hours working with the artificial intelligence to create an app for recreational sports teams. And we got to use it this season. And the goal is that it would help assign all the teams in a fair way. It would assign all the players to the coaches in a fair way. It could be better. It worked pretty good, and it's free and available to the whole world. I can share a link to it. I will put it in the live stream. So I got to use that. It was like we did tryouts, and we didn't even get to see how good the kids were. So I started mentioning the software, what we could do, and everybody in my league, the under 8-year-old people, those coaches said, "Let's do it." And so we just asked everyone if they knew, if you rated a kid from 1 to 5, what was their skill, what was their score, and once you have people's scores, you can assign the teams based on a few rules and an algorithm. So my point there is like I live in a city that's relatively small, And the number of people who have my skills would be kind of small. And then the number of people who have my skill and are in soccer and are even interested in trying to use that skill to help our neighbors is small. And so that's what we get to do is we get to take our skills, try to grow them, try to go out and serve our neighbors. So whether they take our jobs or not, whether we lose our jobs or not, they can't necessarily take away our skill, can't take away our knowledge, our willingness to help and serve. Here we go. Hazy, shalom. You know this topic keeps me up at night. It will affect my career. It keeps you up, Hazy, because you're smart. If you're smart, yeah, I wish you could hop in, sir. We could talk about it. But you're learning skills and applying skills. You've learned skills. Learn how to use the technology to be a force multiplier. You might end up being like within the pattern is going to be that the number of workers decreases, the number of human workers decreases. You know, if you're naive, you might think that all workers' work weeks drop from 40 to 20 to 10, but what will actually happen is that, in my opinion, is that the better, more skilled people will continue to keep their jobs, um, and the number of those that continue to work will decrease. And then if we get to keep our jobs or not, you know, we get to take our skill and try to help. Mark says that should not keep you up at night at all, even if your skills become useless. I would say your skills, I doubt your skills are going to become useless, Hezzy. You've got a lot of soft skills, also your ability to use the tech to be a force multiplier for you as you serve people, serve customers. But also, I mean, maybe there's other things that keep you up at night as well. But you know, also going to shout out to Mark. I wrote down some notes for Mark. I'm glad he's here. Like Mark might end up being one of the people who keeps his job while I get replaced because he might have the skill set that's valuable and he might be up in a hierarchy for that skill set above a lot of people. So that may be the future, guys. Mark will still have his job when I don't. So, but it'd be good to know, like, what are those skills? I wrote down some skills Mark might have, and it's like, I wrote down data science. It seemed like he knows data science. And I think he claims to know software engineering. So, you know, as these things take away the data scientists and the software engineers, I imagine the best will continue to be overseers, maybe a backup, things like that. And Mark might continue to be able to do things like that at skill. So let's see, Hezzy, I'd love to hop on, can't now. Oh, let's see, Yoav, listening to all of this TLC stuff keeps me up at night. Listening to my job, somebody else's problem. It's losing my job. That's a future. The future, Gavin can worry about that. That's one way to take it. You know, Hezzy talking to Mark. Humanity and our interface with religion. I guess you could see maybe a good and a bad, probably. But even in religion, you can try and integrate the technology in the good way in your religious community. Interesting. Hezzy could always become a rabbi. And that too can be replaced by an AI avatar. So I listened to a guy there. The AI can't take away like who you are, your purpose. Um, it's like an idea that once the AI takes away all the work that you had to do, what's left? Well, that's you, right? All the work you had been doing your whole life. That if that gets taken away, by someone else, like you get to go be Hesse. You know, you get to go be with you know your wife and children that can't be taken away. Here we go, Mark. Gavin, you don't know anything about me. The idea that you could write down skills I have is just hysterical. You need to get out of your head. It's hard to get out of my head, Mark. I heard you talk to Jacob and it sounded like you were talking about polling and how people do polling. And that stuff you were talking about sounded like you knew what you're talking about. And with regard to polling and data science, I was following along enough to know that it sounded like you had a grip on that. I wrote that down. So yeah. There we go. Personal connection cannot be replaced by AI. That's exactly right. That's the thing. We will, our relationships with our neighbors, it's like that's our purpose. AI won't replace that. So they can't take away our true purpose. And what if you cannot understand that level of statistics? What if you cannot get a grip on that point? Jacob couldn't. I think Jacob can understand the statistics. I think you could, if you took time and tried to work with Jacob, you would see that his mind will grasp it. It just takes some time. He's a smart guy. It just takes time. It takes time trying to understand how they see it and understand where they might be wrong. So yeah, he's a smart guy. Both of y'all are smart guys. And I agree with this point, Mark. What if not everyone can understand everything? What if no amount of time would do it? Yeah, but it's hard to know if it's hard to make that judgment. It's hard to know how much time it would take or if it's someone who just where it's impossible, right? You might even say it's impossible to know. I don't. I'm sure there's good heuristics. What's interesting is like the thing that I'm terrible at is actually it's like the place where there's opportunity for the most growth. That's what I've realized. It's cool recognizing our weaknesses um, because there can be the most growth in that area. And there are limits to cognition. I mean, there's limits. There's definitely limits. Definitely limits. All right, I'm going to toss in an invite. So too much information is a flood that overloads your cognition, as I've made videos about. Yeah, and Mark, you move so fast as well that you can overload me. There's some people who can receive the information, but it just at a less rate, right? So it becomes hard to juggle all the points. Just like Sally said the other day, more information not no only won't help, but not only won't help, but will sometimes make things work. Yeah. Yes. There I guess I think the difference is what our conceptualization of like artificial intelligence and what its limits are, right? So it's we can talk about human limits. I think we're probably you and Sally, myself, Jacob, a lot of us are on a very similar page about limits we face as humans, but when you get into the territory of the technology we build, there's like room for a little bit more magic that goes beyond what you assumed or expected. Right? It sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Pretty good sentence. Was not I who came up with it. So it's just what you think is possible with technology. Like, is there a limit that technology can't pass? That's the question. Yawn God, holy comments, Batman. Mark, if you think information is the highest value, then AI is an existential threat. I don't think information is the highest value, but I'm trying to understand what it might be like to think information. I think I've been there. I think it might even still be with me a little, but I've only very new to these other very important things like loving your neighbor. So, and the relational. All right. Invite, copy, check it out. See if anyone is interested in the StreamYard. Do 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 do. Young God, the highest value is not. Do I want to read that out loud? This is actually an interesting point. It's almost like Young God has been listening to my conversations with my wife this morning. It's like there's what is, there's a place for, there's a time and a place for things. Also, like there's I can put out content that is poison, that will poison people. uh I could do it accidentally, intentionally. I could put out middle of the road content. I might try to, and I would love to be able to put out content which benefits people. And then how much like, if you're talking about not shitting where you eat, it's like how much is poison is in the water well. There's a place for the poison and toxic stuff, and there's a place for where maybe we try to avoid that. But I don't know. I think we're agreeing, young God. I don't think I'm. The question would be is like, where do you go to eat? What are you eating? So Jesus talked about power of our words, and now we're in this world with megaphones. I'm using one, and so I'm kind of having awareness. I've developed an awareness of and a respect for this as a place to eat. It would be nice to amplify good signals. Ask questions about what is the good news? What's the best news? What's the best, like the best news is good for the most people. Like, and is there some news that is good for all people? So that kind of thing is what I'm interested in. Yeah, I remember Crowder. Yeah, but why would anybody want to change your mind? I think I think what you said makes sense. Mark says, yes, technology is a lever. It has made loud more voices. Most voices should not be made louder. I mean, I agree. I've been asking that question about, myself. Like, what should I put out into the internet? I've tried to get better at not doing that. more and more of my recordings just get trashed. Um, so I used to care more about what am I giving my attention to, and now I'm caring more about what am I putting out there for others to pay attention to. The question is, Marcus, like you're a content creator, maybe not a content creator. Um, I think that personally, to say something about that, I like whenever you speak with women. I think that brings out the best in you. Um, but yeah, you put out content and like, does it harm? Does it hurt? Does it poison? Does it help? How many people can it help? What is the signal that the whole world should hear? Curate your signal, outgoing and incoming. Sounds good. And I'm quite content, actually. It's all of you people who aren't content, and it shows. So, what level of personal responsibility should we take on in shaping people around us? There's this been listening to the Fred Rogers biography, and he tried to get help in creating Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood from professional developmental psychologists, and one of those had said the phrase, "Attitudes are not taught; they are caught." And yeah, that has stuck with me. Has stuck with me. Mark, the whole world should not hear one thing. That would make a flat world. Indeed, persons are too unique to use a single message. I mean, say like Jesus talked about the good news. So yeah, just in my mind, there's a possibility of a kind of news which would be good for all people to be aware of. So that that's what I would hold up as what causes me to question what you say here, even though you know I know there's a lot of news that is not meant for everybody. For absolutely. You said none until you clean your room. I like the clean your room approach. I think Mark he repeats and reiterates what Jordan Peterson said. And so, yeah, it occurred to me at one point, it's like, why am I trying to go out and lead and teach people if I'm not able to lead and teach my wife and children? And so I've been working on that for, like, my wife and I talk every morning. We've been doing it for over a year. We've been married since 2008. And so I try to take that seriously, clean your room. And there's been improvements. My room's a little more clean than it used to be. Tayo. When, let's see, something changed in the zeitgeist, making discernment complicated. Not certain AI will optimally grip that. Yeah, but maybe that's the way it's always been, Lynn. But, well, maybe people came to conclusions like it was always complicated, but nobody thought it was. And so people often come to conclusions that like are wrong because yeah, there was actually a hard problem and the answer was way too simple and there's a better answer. Mark says hierarchy is important. Don't try to punch above your station. Attitude are caught, not taught is the same as mimicry is important. Sounds like there's some wisdom in there, Mark. It's hard to know. It's like it's easy to imagine someone to be beneath. Like I know from personal experience, it's easy to imagine someone to be beneath me, that I would condescend towards them, when in reality I shouldn't have done that. So it's hard to figure out the hierarchy. Uh, what helped me personally is just I ended up having the hope that Jesus is real, and that if I committed to looking up to Jesus and serving Jesus, that would transform my whole life. That would be good. It would help transform the world, and I've not been disappointed by that. Let's see. Here, Mark says, maybe you aren't supposed to lead and teach anyone but your family, but just work with them, help them through submission, be a good friend. And I'm doing that. And I've started coaching soccer teams, and I'm part of small groups at church. And, um, there's results, there's fruit. So, you know, I don't think, like Mark said something the other day to Jacob. Yeah, my note was room cleaning locally. It's like, I agree, room cleaning locally. And when do I get the megaphone, right? And how do you decide if what I'm saying in the megaphone is something that I should like? Do you think that my stream should just be ended right now because I'm misusing the megaphone, right? That's the question. Mark says AI controls nothing but influences everything and allows more people to have an influence lever, and that is not good, especially since the main lever is held by so few. Well, I told the story about building an app for my local city recreational soccer team that is free and can be used by every recreational sports team in the entire world. Well, maybe it needs some way to translate it into their language, right? But maybe all English speakers could use it. And so I worked locally, and it could scale. Um, but so my knowledge and ability to use the technology and create with it has allowed me to be a force multiplier. And it's like, was that good? I think so. And so it's hard to judge. It is a force multiplier for the good and the bad, for the poison and the cure. And if the hope would be that those who have the main lever um, aren't going to just like take away the keys from good people. So it's nice to empower good people. Yes, it would be nice if we didn't empower the bad people. And I understand the fear that maybe in the end, the people with the keys will take them away from the good people. So I think we're on a similar page. Gavin, is the purpose of your live stream? What is the purpose of your live stream, Gavin? I'm hoping to improve, send out good news that is good for the most number of people. I want to be a positive influence in as many people as possible. I want to help every person who hears my voice be blessed with coming to know the good news, to come to know God better, come to catch a good attitude, catch the Holy Spirit, such that they will be able to go throughout their day, their day will have been better because they have listened to the words coming out of the stream. That's the purpose. Mo Godot. I think that's the guy I listened to yesterday. Maybe. And then Young God says he's an AI god who got a little more famous because his son died during a routine appendectomy. So maybe not the same guy. This is hard keeping up with all the comments because I'm a slow brain. Does Jesus only send one optimal message for the world, or do the new atheists have a point about contradiction? Because they're idiots with no poetic information. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's pretty good news for the whole world, in my opinion. I know it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to believe. I don't know that new atheist point really. I don't understand their point. I've never understood their point. Like it just seems like they want to win, and they think themselves more highly. They think of themselves more highly than they should, and they are unable to see the other person's perspective. I'm kind of thinking about who I was as well. Let's see. Where are we at? Where are we at? I'm going to skip to the latest. Oh, Gavin, thanks for the tweet idea. So your live stream is doing something I consider positive. Just wanted to make sure I didn't forget to share that. Sounds like a nice comment, Mark. I'm a little bit autistic, so I never know if people are being sarcastic or not. So, uh, so yeah, if you're being sarcastic or trying to be mean, you have to be more explicit. but it, but if you're being nice, thank you. I'm trying to aim in the right direction, and my skill at doing it is very limited. And all of our skill is limited for humans, and some people have better skill than others. Now, we all end up with different opinions about exactly, you know, how to do it. I think there's some bad weather today, people, in the United States. So make sure you check out the weather if you're, I think, southern states and southeast and east coast. What I've heard. Here we go. Mark, so maybe we shouldn't give people of unequal skill access to powerful tools. I mean, I'm with you. The hard part is figuring out, yeah, like the who ends up making the decision. There has to be some kind of a decision making process and body to do that. We can be smart about who we give attention to. You know, we can be smart about where our money goes, but and smarter. Like I'm making mistakes in the way I give money and attention, and I need to get better at it. Uh, I also think there's a network effect. So, the hope would be that, StreamYard right now, if I drop a link, there's nothing stopping say a Paul Vanderklay from hopping in and then streaming to his channel, which then doesn't stop a John Rivaki or Jonathan Pajot, which then doesn't stop a Jordan Peterson. And so a tool like StreamYard could allow for a signal to be amplified, but how does each person decide which signal to amplify? How does Jacob know Yeah, why does Jacob trust me or you? So Jacob's trying to decide who to trust. Everyone's trying to do it, and it's hard. This is the like I. It would be great to know who is trustworthy within a domain, and so that's why I pointed out data science. Like, you're a good data scientist. I just want to. If I had, I would love to have a list of the things that you're good at and rank ordered them. And then it'd be cool to take the thing you're best at and then put you alongside every other person in the world. Then and then know, oh, Mark's better than 99999 in data science or whatever it is. But we don't have that objective thing, and it would. But I'm interested in how we would go about it, how we might go about trying to do something like that. Len, it was a compliment. Thank you, Len. I need help with that sometimes. So censorship is inevitable. Hierarchy is important, and you aren't going to be involved. Excellent inference. I mean, I feel like I'm involved to a little extent, right? Especially with my wife and children. To your point about localism, I'm involved coaching and with my coworkers. I'm involved. My network is very small, but Jesus's network was very small. He did not have a huge following, at least like close followers, when he was alive. But let's see. Jacob took away my access years ago now. He doesn't trust me anymore. I think it's more like constraint, not trust, but both might be true. So, what it could be, Mark, is that the list of things you're very good at, there is a list of things you're very good at. And then this other list of things that you're not good at. And it's because of the list of things you're not good at that would be the reason why he doesn't trust you with the keys. Um, and then if there is a list of things you're not good at, it'd be nice if we could point at it, and then you would look at it and you would say, and if you could say, well, what if they're right? And then it became the place where you could experience the most growth most rapidly because you're so bad at it. And we all have these places that we're terrible at that for some reason we don't even like to look at them. I know this from personal experience. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think you could, I imagine that you could end up with keys to this thing, and I could end up going to Jacob and saying, "Hey, give Mark my seat," you know. Um, and then I don't think calling out your weaknesses publicly is right. And maybe that's part of like that move right there might be the thing that you would be able to get better at, right? And then I did it. Whoops. I'm sorry. Because as soon as we do that, a criticism, we have to be careful with our criticisms because it automatically will cause the other person to become defensive. We put up walls. And so, yeah, I want to get better at this. I'm not great at it. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm not good at this skill that's very important that a lot of people aren't good at. The skill, I mean, yeah, I'm not good at it. Here we go. If you never ask for access, you never lose access. Well, I think it's a little trickier than that, young God. I think Mark was given access, and it sounds like maybe it was taken away. I don't know. Um, and then there's a scarcity thing, and then also there's you could also offer to pay as well. Yeah, Jacob's paying for my access right now. Jacob's shown me more respect. I put Jacob and Chad have shown me more respect than about anyone in the community, and I hadn't even recognized that or realized it until recently. In Jacob's case, but There you go. Talking about constraint. Here's a good one. Only weak people care about criticism. You cannot help them that way. Also, you don't need to. I think you've got a point. Like there's a, and you help me, Mark. What are the ways in which to be a leader? And so you've got something like carrot, you've got stick, you've got environmental conditioning, social engineering, and you have leading by example. There's a four. And maybe I'm misunderstanding you too. Maybe you're wrong here. Only weak people care about criticism. And maybe I'm a weak person. Um, and I care about criticism. But, and how much should we care about criticism? That's the underlying question. Like, maybe it's only the people who care about criticism who can be held with criticism. I don't know. It seems to me most people actually don't handle criticism well and actually aren't able to provide it well. This is hard. Disagreement, conflict, it happens all the time, and there's some skills involved. Oop. Knowing what happened really helps you to understand what is going on rather than just assuming the worst or best. Sounds about right. But also, that word assuming, it's cool to be able to consider the worst or best, but actually knowing what happened and getting closer to knowing what happened can help, but too much information might hurt. Leading by example, if closer to mimicry, which is how we know almost everything. Sounds like a sounds like you're hitting the nail on the head, Mark. On that one, I don't care about criticism. I care about feedback and prefer negative feedback. It's an important shift in framing. I think you're probably hitting the nail on the head again. And but then how do you give feedback? Like if it's negative feedback, like why would I? Sometimes it's appropriate to do a negative feedback in a live stream. If I had a million subscribers right now, and the whole world was watching, it's like maybe I need to be more careful with negative feedback because it could be interpreted in so many different ways and might hurt your reputation. And who knows, you know? But I feel like I know. We should be very careful about the way we provide that negative feedback. What's the time and the place, and who is the audience? Matthew chapter 18 on how to rebuke. Disagreement is not criticism. Conflict is not required for feedback. Yeah. And putting up defensive walls is probably the, yeah, once someone puts up the defensive walls, that's the, and yeah, it happens in me. It's the defensive walls. I'm going to pull up John Gottman, um, my notes, hopefully. Gottman. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. Gottman identified four communication patterns that predict relationship failure. Criticism, attacking your partner's character instead of addressing specific behaviors. Contempt, expressing superiority, sarcasm, or disrespect, which is the strongest predictor of divorce. Defensiveness, playing the victim and avoiding responsibility. And stonewalling, shutting down or withdrawing from the conversation. And, you know, I think there's nuance and details in each of those. There's examples, there's the antidotes for them. So I'll toss those out there. I think that's signal, honestly. Let's see. Rebuke sounds like feedback to me, negative even. Yeah. I mean, your framing, I'm fine with your framing, Mark. I think we're on the same page. Lynn says agreeable people have a hard time distinguishing the difference. Yeah. It's this comes about like what I've seen, the pattern I've seen is that you can be raised in a family where there's no argument, there's conflict avoidance. There's never, it's always smile, happy, happy smile. Um, Avoid the difficult conversation. And then that will shape the children in that house in a certain way to then all of a sudden you receive a negative feedback, which could be constructive, and then fall apart. No resilience. Very like learning how to do it in the home locally is really important. Niceness is its own clout chasing. Fancy words, but I'm guessing we're saying similar things. Mark says, yes, if people put up defenses, you cannot help them. So what? Just move on. It's not a problem to be solved. But in marriage, Mark, like people, a husband and wife are married, yes, if so the message you put out there, it is an option. People get divorced. But I don't think that, I think there is a path to peace in there. And it it's tough when people put up defenses. It's challenging. It might even look at it like a game, maybe a joy-filled game of, oh, there goes the defensive walls of all the ideas that fit together like a giant puzzle, which makes up their mind. And maybe you can be careful and do a dance and play to help lower the defenses somehow. Yawn God. Sally. There you go. Sally's got it. Yeah, within marriage. So there's a difference between marriage and primary relationships. Like at work and the business, sometimes you'll have a development plan and you'll say, if you don't hit these milestones on your development plan, you have to go. So, yeah, exactly. I see Mark and Yon God back and forth. I might be on that. I don't know exactly what that topic is, Mark and Yon God, but I might lean toward Yon God's side on that one. If it just the spirit of it, but I may be wrong, and I know I don't understand both of your perspectives. That's my intuition. There's empathy is an important thing. Being able to see from other people's perspectives is an important thing. Here we go. Peter Penrose Bach. The dance is as much resistance as it is surrender. I've done the surrender move, the submit, the surrender. I called it the punching bag. It's like, okay, I'm going to be your punching bag. I've used this thing. It's not something you don't want to be the punching bag in every relationship, at every, uh, well, in your marriage, even. Like, you don't want to be the punching bag the entire marriage. But I've found that sometimes my wife needed a punching bag. And it's tough being the punching bag without trying to get defensive and wanting to punch back, you know. But being able to do that, take ownership, and say, I'm just going to be this punching bag. And I'm saying, like, with words and jabs, you never, all the things you can tell somebody, um, you know, got it is a dance, rope a dope, maybe a Muhammad Ali rope a dope. Wait your time, take your time. Let's see what Mark says here. Surrender is not submission. And opposition or resistance end only with war. Something to consider. Trade-offs exist. Make sure you know which ones you are making. And there's different ways to do war. Like I would just add that in. Surrender is not submission. Sounds like an interesting one. I'm not sure. I don't understand exactly what you mean there, but I'm sure you have some interesting thoughts there. Let's see what Sally says. Rabbit hole with me. If you're cooking banana bread, can the bread contain the pan? Can the bread being cooked contain the oven? Normal bread, loaf type. I might be missing the context. I mean, these seem rhetorical questions to on the surface there. Here we go. Mark, words are poison. Just act. It's easier to get along with people who shut up. I have said very similar things too. Words of encouragement are real. So, yeah, I think you can say words which will poison and kill. Like there's actual words that can poison and kill people. Sometimes when you go to the doctor and they give you a diagnosis and say you have 6 months to live, people believe those words and die. There's also words that can heal, and people believe those words and it changes their whole life. Thinking and feeling on your feet is unavoidable. So you can become captured by thoughts and feelings such that you will have difficulty like having the mind change and the feelings change. Like at every moment is the potential for like there's extreme possible thoughts and feelings a human can have, and those are available at each moment, but you can become gripped by them. And there's a skill in all of that. Here we go. Sally, context. The context is the bread is AI. Okay. Yeah, there's some relationships and interconnections and some limits. I might question those limits some though. I think that's where we'll have our disagreements on the AI topic is what can that technology do and what are the limits of that technology? That's Here we go. I think Mark's putting out quite a few gems today. The need to be heard or feel validated is a lack of sacrifice. It's a selfishness. Stoicism is good for this. Self-control matters. Like Mark might be, I think you're saying some good things, Mark. The thing is can you take that control and then have the insight and the tool set to know how to use your control in order to bring about something in the other person that is good in them? Like how exactly do you get the other person to be able to have self-control, right? And I think that's where the empathy is required and knowing where their mind is at, their worldview, their past, their experiences, and their skill and knowledge in that whole territory that is important. And words matter. Mark says The ancient Greeks didn't go on about this endlessly for no reason. I feel like lifting that up. Mark's pointing, making good pointings. Mark says, first control yourself. That is where you are stuck. Mark's pointing towards me. In my own head, I feel like I am like, if you were to rank order people's self control, I'm high on the list. So I may be totally, and I have been in the past, totally delusional about my own skill at something. So uh, discipline and self control, you know. And then it's all relative, Mark. If you have way more self control than me, you might look at me and say you're terrible at it. But maybe try to rank order it. It's like, what am I? 98th percentile, 99th percentile, 99.9 percentile. What is the? This is where I think Jacob the other day was making points. Uh, he was challenging you kind of about being trying to get better at the judgment of the distributions of skills, uh, the and what is actually representative of like the whole human population. So there, yeah, you got another one right behind it. So first, control yourself. That is where you are stuck. Then worry about the other person. This is what I was on about earlier. Clean your room, not your kitchen. And this is the path. Like when I have had success, and I've definitely had my mistakes, it is like if when the defensiveness arises, I have to recognize the defensiveness, or when there's all kinds of powerful emotions and feelings, and yeah, here we go. Mark, why are you doing this live stream, Gavin? See how I come to this conclusion yet? Observation matters. Maybe. I think now with this, Mark, you're saying potentially that I am lacking self control, and therefore, in my lack of self control, I am not able to help share the kind of message which would benefit the most people possible. Uh, and I'm practicing it, Mark. I'm practicing it. So maybe you could try to point at what I'm doing wrong, the negative feedback about the things I've said, which would be bad, which would be poison for people. And even saying it, I'm thinking of some myself. So yeah. And so like, do I highlight which comments and trying to accomplish that goal? Oh, so here's Lynn. Empathy seems to bring a PTSD or a dark triad thing. I don't know what your point is here, Lynn. Lynn says compassion is what Jesus did and does. Sounds pretty good. There's Mark. Okay, let me try this. Gavin, is it possible that you're trying to follow some pattern called metagelical? I mean, I don't really know what that word means. I heard it used a few times. There may be a pattern I'm trying to follow, and I don't know what but yeah, it's got a name. You can call it a name, and then you could say which, yeah. What is the pattern to follow, which would bring about the most good for the most number of people? What do you name that pattern? I'd call it Christian pattern, to kind of repeat what Len just said. Um, I'd say the pattern I'm trying to follow is having Christ incarnated within me. The Christ pattern. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm practicing. So yeah, Mark says he's pointing at something. The word is slippery. PV came up with this word. And Mark says, how about this? Trying to bring about good in others as being evangelical by definition. So I am being evangelical. I can accept that. It's just that so that's the reason we use new words, I guess, because that old word has so many relationships and connections with other thoughts and ideas and opinions. But I'm with you. I think I am doing something that's a bit evangelical. Absolutely. Sissy Mole. I probably should have read this before I posted it. I don't know that you. I kind of have a feel like my trust for Mark is more than the CC Mole. So I need to read what you say first. There we go. So CC Mole says if something or someone else says to you ends up poisoning and killing you, that kind of seems like a you problem. I don't know. I'm just jumping in halfway through the conversation. Yeah, I used to feel that way as well, CC Mole. I'm a father, a husband, and I can see, I'm a coach, I'm a coworker. I can see how my words shape others. And I kind of have a responsibility that for my words. I have decided to take more responsibility and ownership for my words. Mark says, maybe you should go learn that first rather than live streaming it. I don't think you understand enough about your own motivations to be good at it. So this is where there's a skill at incarnating Christ within. So, yeah, I'm trying to do that, Mark. And do you have more skill at incarnating Christ? Do you have more skill than I do at incarnating Christ, Mark? Let's see. Peter Penrose Bach. I often think of AI as a librarian, and through that frame, one is often met with the fear of being shelved or indexed and maybe forgotten even. Well, what happened for me, I'm trying to remember your real name, but yeah, what happened for me is that I had some of my worth was tied into my job back in March of 2023. I realized this thing could replace me. Maybe I get bumped up against these feelings that you're talking about of fear. Um, but that's because I'd put so much hope in technology and put my and my worth was tied up in that, in technology and my relationship to it. Let's see. See you, Mark. I'll read your last one. Uh, it takes patience, sir. It takes patience. But I understand you're busy. Go out, do good stuff, Mark. I don't need to take up all your time. All right, I give up negative feedback. Stop doing this. Go learn from someone first instead. This isn't about me. I'm not doing what you're doing. I mean, this is it. Like, who do you trust? Who are the best Christians, who has Christ incarnated in them? So let's see. There we go, Sally. It's not what, it's how. Getting others to help sense make and understand the world, fantastic. Live stream recording it, less fantastic. Possibly detrimental. Well, it just depends on what else I could be doing, Sally. Like I've got things, I've got opportunities to do different things, and you don't know all the opportunities that I have on my plate, what I could be doing with my time right now. Um, and then this isn't my whole life. Possibly detrimental. I mean, you can share your opinion why what I'm doing could be detrimental. That would help. Might help, I should say. All right. I've got a meeting in an hour. Let's see. So basic, I'm a little bit of a on-call type person. So part of that requires I'm nearby the computer. Part of what I do is I serve people at work, and I get notifications, and so I try to be responsive. And yeah, I've got some time. Let me send out one message here. No, not yet. So, Gavin, so far you've resisted all of my feedback. Claim that I'm doing or should do what you are doing for no reason and refuse to help and advise. So, what I hear here is Mark has tried to provide feedback to me for me to help me in my goal, and that includes stopping live streaming and going and learning from someone else. He hasn't pointed at who, like who's the person who has what I need to learn, and claimed that I'm doing or should do what you are doing. I don't. I think I've made myself clear. Maybe a third party in here could summarize um, this. This is where it'd be nice to. It's nice to bring in a third party. Like if you're going to do rebukes in Matthew chapter 18, and obviously this isn't the place to do it according to Matthew chapter 18. And So the right way to do it would be Mark and I attempt to rebuke each other in private, and that could work out, and we could become brothers. If it doesn't work, we bring a witness. Maybe he brings a witness and I bring a witness, and we do try again. Maybe there's one witness we both trust, and then if that doesn't work, then you've kind of got this divorce scenario in a community, in a church. Peter Penrose Bach. Fortune favors the brave, Gavin. Young God, you got to learn how to be funny, guy. Young God, you have to hop in and help make this more fun. You do. You also do in the live stream. So thank you for participating. But yeah, you're right. Well, funny, root word fun. I do think there's something to serious play. Um, it's nice if it's fun and serious. And it's something, it is one of the things I can get better at. Absolutely. You got to learn how to be funny, laugh at your own jokes, and heckle the hecklers. Maybe, maybe, maybe. There are some people who enjoy that. I think there's some group of people who enjoy that. There's another group who don't. Uh, Joab says, heckle the hecklers if you have to. That sounds even better. That sounds even better. So I get to heckle Yon God. So Yon God is the heckler of my heckler, and I can heckler Yon God. You hear that, Yon God? I get to heckle you now. Do you sign up to be the target of my heckling? Now I think if there was a round table in a courtroom, or a court with a king, you would need a jester. But the jester wears an outfit and it has the uniform of the jester, right? Sometimes Jacob calls Griswold Grim a shaman, but he might actually be more of the jester. And you know, and maybe Chad. I don't know who all wants to play which role, but we need uniforms. Mark says, "Well, at least people are trying to help Gavin now. Thanks." And I appreciate it. And then to Mark's point earlier, it sounds like Mark wants to point me towards finding people locally to help me, and I have done that. But I'll be right back. All right. Oh. So Mark says, so is there perhaps a reason you keep bringing everything back to marriage? Seems like that might be what you are trying to work on here. Might be important. Oh, I think it's super important, Mark. Um, super important. I think there's actually skills developed and cultivated in marriage which can help. So, like the peacemaking, learning, growing together as a team, and that level of commitment. That whole thing is really important. Like they say that I, our relationship to Jesus can be like a marriage, like the commitment between a husband and a wife. Yon God says, "Oh yeah, +1 for the algo because I respect the AGI takeover." The AGI takeover. To Sally's point, we don't. The AI takeover is not guaranteed to be so pleasant, at least at first. Mark says, so seems like people gave you some advice about working things out, but you used the constraint of marriage to dodge taking those solutions seriously. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure about which people gave me which advice. And I'm not sure what I dodged. But I know it sounds like you're trying and you're trying to be helpful to me. And I think there's a place for married people. Like, so there's the good news for all people, and then there's some kinds of news that is good for married people, which might not be as good for the non-married people. Similarly, good news for the non-married people. There's different domains of life, uh, different contexts. So Mark says, fair. I think people were trying to be helpful. You retreat back into Jesus a lot too. That isn't good. It's all retreating into yourself. I mean, that's a risky. It's risky. It depends on who Jesus is within my mind and within, because like the Hitler and the Nazis, they upheld a kind of Jesus that is not, that maybe ignored, you know, the number one rule to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So we can't. There is a risk that we retreat back into a Jesus, which is just basically the Jesus of our own understanding, which is dangerous. And if we're not willing to come to know Jesus better, there will be no growth. Mark says, Sally and I have been trying to talk to you and help you and cooperate with you for years, Gavin. That might be a hint, too. It it doesn't necessarily feel that way, Mark. I I would say I think Sally. It seemed to me Sally put forth a little more effort, but you have put forth effort too. Uh, but I appreciate that. Thank you for the effort, and I apologize. I definitely when you guys were trying to help me, I was a different person back then. So y'all should know that too. I'm a. I know we will tend to judge people based on our interactions with them, and then as people change, it can sometimes be hard to remap who that person is. The world is not within your mind. You will have a hard time working out how to get along with others if you rely on your mind rather than observation of the world outside you. Fair enough. Fair enough. It also helps to have people you trust that help you know the world better, understand the world better, and to have wise counsel, and then fruit from the development of that relationship, in which trust is earned over time. Mark says, your own feelings are blocking you from cooperation. Rebellion is strong with you. Well, it's like, you know, uh, the way that we would cooperate best, Mark, is that there would be things that you notice within me that I'm better at than you are. You have to admit there's certainly something within me and there's knowledge and experience and skill that I have that you don't have, and you would respect me for that. And then there would I simultaneously would see that try and see and grow in my understanding of your experience, knowledge, and skill. And then we're able to cooperate better with kind of an awareness, self awareness, and awareness of each other, and that mapping into like the world and it being real. Then we're able to team up better. Yeah. I mean, so what you'll do, Mark, here, you said you don't dictate cooperation. We offered it. You are right now still rejecting it. And that, yeah, I am. I'm rejecting what you're offering. Um, I think I know something you don't know. I think I know something Sally doesn't know. You guys think I'm wrong. And so, yeah, it's the way it goes. Young God, the internet is more real than real life confirmed. Not really, young God. Mark, when did we tell you we're wrong and what about? This seems like your imagination again, Gavin. Oh, I don't know how far back to go, Mark. I don't know how far back to go. Do we stay within the context of today? Do I hop to the things y'all said in an earlier stream? I mean, sometimes there's misunderstandings. I know that you guys have misunderstood me and attempted to correct me, um, and I understand why it was miscommunication, and that and so every word we use, we're attempting to try and basically do a kind of telepathy. There was something in your mind, you use words, I try to receive it. Something in my mind, I use words, you try to receive it. You know, try to understand each other's what's going on in each other's minds, and but I don't even know what the question is about really. All I said is I am rejecting. I agree. I am not a trust. I'm not a person who trusts others. The trust has to be earned. Let's see, RJ. Ask your own kids. So RJ, you're making a point about the internet. Let's see. So you know, how much do my children participate on the internet, right? I have a 4, 7, 9 year old, and I get to shape how they relate with the internet, and they homeschool. And so they also interact less with all the rest of the people who are at school who are on the internet. But I can't control it all. I try to do the parental guidance stuff. Yonga, CC Mool, I don't like how Gavin skipped your question. Well, I appreciate you pointing that out, Yonga. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Let's scroll. Let's scroll. I did skip this one subconsciously multiple times. Do you feel that God has a plan for your life? Maybe this is the question. I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I feel like at each moment there would be an action, a word that could be said such that I am sharing God's word. That's what I believe. And I'd love to get close enough to God so that my ability to do and say what God wants me to do and say gets better. That's my hope, is that I can do God's will. So is there a plan? No, maybe. All right. Let's get to the bottom. Oh, I'm seeing, reading what Mark said here. It might be good to. Gavin is unfamiliar with the definition of libel and slander. Good to know. Gavin cannot submit to anything outside himself, especially God. Listen to how he's been talking his whole time. All solutions are in his mind, relationship with Jesus. Well, yeah, you'll hear the words I say, and it'll cause you to think certain things. And so, like, even like basically, anytime if we begin talking about anything where you don't understand what's in my mind and are unable to, there's a limit. Uh, and I don't think it's a permanent fixed limit. Then we will have disagreement. There will be. It's like I don't want to submit to your interpretation of my words, your misunderstanding of my words. So, like, even in this sentence, Mark says, for Gavin, all solutions are in his mind, relationship with Jesus. But it's not entirely true, because I also said we all have a Jesus of our own understanding, and we need to try and understand Jesus better. I've said a lot of other things as well. RJ, there you go. Look, Daddy, I'm helping better discourse. There we go. So Mark says that he's basically saying that I'm doing the AA cultism, God of your own understanding, poison. And so Yeah, it's always a God of your own understanding. Like there's no person who's ever existed throughout all of humanity who has worshipped a God that which was not of their own understanding. So RJ says, I prefer Jesus of his own understanding. And he says, then again, that would just be being Jewish, but I'm here to be nice today. I did have questions for the Jews. It said, could Jesus be your rabbi? And could Jesus be Messiah ben Yosef? Those are the two questions for Jews. RJ, pretty sure God is beyond anyone's understanding, Gavin. That's about half the point Mark wants you to get. Well, we would need to understand how uh, to listen to God, right? So, yes, I don't know exactly why God would want me to say any one thing, any one word, or do one thing. And I could learn how to hear God's voice in order to do the thing I don't understand why I should do. And then there would be fruit, there would be a result. And and so yeah, I will never understand uh, why God wants me to do different things. But I can learn to listen to God's voice in order to do the thing God wants me to do. Right? RJ Gavin, unfortunately, having more than one Messiah ruins the whole Christian thing last time I checked. Well, it depends on how you define what a Christian is, RJ. So you know, you can submit to some authority about what it means to be a Christian. And you can want me to submit to an authority about what it means to be a Christian. But, what does it actually mean to be a Christian? But it still ignores the question I had is what if Jesus was uh, Messiah ben Yosef, right? Can, can Jews believe that? You could flip it around and say, can Christians believe that? And I would say, yes, you can be a Christian and you can believe Jesus was Messiah ben Yosef. RJ, Gavin is currently describing having discernment, not talking with the Lord. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 33. Is that it? But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. So, I mean, discernment? RJ, hashtag submit, triple exclamation. CC Mole, seems like you are more worried about other people's reasons to believe more than your own. I mean, I could talk about why I believe what I believe. And I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what I've said that would indicate that I'm caring about other people's reasons. But there we go, RJ. I don't recommend cherry picking the Bible, but hey, that's just me. And here's RJ, or Mark. But you can prove anything if you do that. Yeah, it's interesting how we can prove anything. Like in Mark's mind and in RJ's mind, they have proved things today. They proved things about me. And in many other people's minds, the things that have been proved about me in the minds of Mark and RJ are not proved. So we do this. You can prove anything. I've even heard Mark say things like that in the past. Here we go. Yon God. Who wins an AI Jesus versus AI Muhammad? Let's have fun, guys. This is too serious. What happens is AI Jesus ends up sacrificing himself in order to convert AI Muhammad into a Christian. Boom. And then who wins? Did Jesus win? RJ, I'm here just giving soft advice, Gavin. I'm not here to argue. Or have I made an argument? Oh, let's see, RJ. I will try to point out where I misunderstood you then. RJ says Gavin is currently describing having discernment, not talking with the Lord. Right? So that sounds like something that where there could be a misunderstanding of me. And yeah, anyways. But Mark. Mark will be divorced first from the sound of it. Actually, yeah, I think there's a way for us to coexist peacefully though, Mark. Right? Mark Mark says he keeps refusing and slandering me with lies, so it's a long way away if it can happen. So I would ask you to point out one lie I've said. And I know there's some that you have said, but I also understand why you said it. So I'm wondering which one you have said. which one I have said, which one you think I have said. These kinds of things are inevitable, that we will say something that's not true while we're doing this. It's just part of it. Here we go. RJ, if you'd like to explore what I was trying to point out, I'd recommend looking up Sophria.com and looking at the part where Moses actually does talk to the Lord very carefully. You're talking about when he met God face to face. Which part are you talking about, RJ? I've been to Sephria a few times, but I know it's a good resource. It's a big resource. So what kind of search would I look for? What kind of search would I do? If I were to go, or when I go to Sephria? RJ, I'm specifically saying Moses never is face to face. Yeah. So Moses is like very important to Jews, and the question would be, is like, can a human have a relationship with God, and what is the limits of a person's relationship with God, and how can it happen? And am I hearing from the Lord, or am I using discernment? Right? And how would you know what a difference? And if I'm able to say and do what God wants me to do, then that would be nice, wouldn't it? RJ says Moses only ever sees God pass by from a protected point and cleft in the rock. Isn't there a part where, what is it? They have to construct they have an ark of the covenant. They have to build. They were given all the instructions on how to build a tent of meeting, and Moses would go into the tent of meeting. That's what I was thinking of. I'm no expert at this stuff, but my impression was that was where a kind of face to face thing happened. RJ. RJ says Jeremiah doesn't overwrite anything, not how unfolding works. I don't understand what you mean here. It sounds interesting, though. I've heard of the unfolding, but it obviously didn't stick with me. But I remember it being, it seemed important and interesting. Mark says, I did earlier. I never lied about you, dude. What are you talking about? Or are you doing it again now? So the other day I had said something like, um, the phrase I used. Here we go. We got a Jacob. Hey, Jacob, you want in? Hey, Jacob, he's in the back. All right, I'll let you in. I'll just address this one more time. I said a phrase the other day that was easily misunderstood. Mark and Sally misunderstood it. They ended up saying they're misunderstanding, because there's words and phrases we can say that can have multiple interpretations. And so when he leaned into the one I did not mean, it sounds like a lie. It was not intentional. It was a misunderstanding, because I'm not great at communicating. So, no hard feelings, but that kind of thing happens in communication all the time. Hey, Jacob.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Better now that you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened there? Why would you feel better now that I'm here. That's a strange thing to say.
It's a miracle, Jacob. It's a miracle.
Better now that Shadow's here.
I bet sometimes when that cat is next to you, you feel better.
I definitely feel better. Why do you think I have a cat?
There you go. Oh, you. Let's see. How about the? Will you answer some questions for me, Jacob?
I will try to answer some questions for you, sure.
So, what is this unfolding thing? Do you know about unfolding? That Jeremiah and unfolding that RJ is talking about?
I have no idea what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'll try to catch you up. I was talking about how I'm trying to say and do my goal is to say and do what God wants me to do, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm trying, and then over time, hopefully, I get better at doing it. And then I read Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 33,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and then RJ was saying that I'm not talking to the Lord, I'm using discernment, and then uh, we got into a talk about Moses, and he recommended going to Sephariah and looking up how Moses uh, interacted with God.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So I'll tell you what my initial read of what said
okay.
is. So in Judaism, the way we look at the Bible, um, the revelation of God to Moses and the Jewish people on and really the entire world on Mount Sinai is the greatest revelation that there ever was and there really could be, um, in terms of God revealing himself. And therefore, the 5 books of Moses, in a very real sense, are the entirety of the Jewish canon of the Bible. Yes, and we have not just one holiday, actually, in a very real sense, every holiday, but certainly Pentecost, right? And this is, I mean, I've discussed this with Father Stephen DeYoung before. Um, Pentecost is the Jewish holiday celebrating the revelation of the Torah, and that's why Christian Pentecost is a celebration of the revelation of the Holy Spirit, and there's an echo in Christianity of that. But back
Right.
to what I was saying. So we believe that the rest of the Bible is an explication, an expansion. Um, it's true in that it helps you understand the 5 books of Moses, but it cannot in any way contradict, or even add to really the 5 books of Moses.
And I'm with you. And where
It's
does
kind of
the
like we're decompressing, the 5 books of Moses into everything else.
so is there a possibility for a human being to learn how to uh, get better at learning how to hear God's voice at every moment, to speak well and to do well in the world? Is that possible?
It is and it isn't. Let me pull up some scripture for you. So the fact is, God has the freedom to speak yes and no as he wishes, because obviously he is God. What's the verse I'm thinking? First Kings 19. First Kings 19. Hmm. Okay, this should be a good place to start. And he came there to a cave and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, What art thou doing here, Eliyahu? Elijah. And he said, I have been very... Let me just make sure I have the right... Yeah, it is. First Kings 19. I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword, and I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, Go out and stand upon the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, What art thou doing here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And the Lord said to him, Go return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus, that is. And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Aram. God is not in the great winds. God is not in the earthquake. God is not in the fire. God speaks through the small, still voice. And this is even to Elijah. Can a person aspire to prophecy? Yes, he can aspire, and he should aspire to prophecy. Should a person imagine that he can force the Lord to speak? He can't force the Lord to speak. Right. And especially in these days, we very much believe that the Lord rarely speaks to us. Why that is, I could give various reasons for it. But it's very, very easy for us to imagine that something is the Lord speaking. And if you say, Thus says the Lord, and you're wrong, that's actually a capital offense in Judaism. Right?
And because how do you know that they are wrong?
If the word that they say doesn't come true, plenty of people in 2020 were claiming to know that Trump was going to win and be president. Look, if you so apparently I did it correctly. If what they say doesn't come true, that's how you know that it's that. I mean, Deuteronomy chapter 13, the first few verses talks about that.
I guess the prophet should have said Trump will be president again and not put the date timestamp on it.
Maybe, but look, when you're making I mean, if you're going to say something so vacuous as to, you know, like you can definitely speak and pretend that, and this is what actually generally happens in a lot of places where people interpret tongues or prophecy, right? The words of the Lord, right? They say things that can easily be interpreted in any way and
Right.
could never be wrong, right? The Messiah will come. Yes, Messiah will come. And like, what, you know, like, okay, what did you add to the world by claiming that? And this is actually the flip side of when someone says, like they're that it's a prophecy or a miracle. If we don't believe that God speaks to people just to tell them platitudes and claptrap, right? Like what's the point of God doing a miracle and speaking to a person and saying things that are already in the Bible?
But what if, well, because God can?
He could, sure, he could do anything, but why would he?
I mean, I could give all kinds of possible answers, right? But like, so I mean, it's cool. Like, it's really cool whenever there's an insight of some kind, which leads to like where like my two girls are going at it, you know, and this pattern happens, you know, where it's just a frustrating experience, and then there's an insight, and it's like then there's action, and then it's like, wow, this change, that was different, you know, like there's like in that kind of thing, I've seen it happen in my relationship with my wife and my children, where you know there will be an insight about a new thing to do that had never been done before, and then it's good things happen. And I'll do it when I'm coaching or at work, and it's like it's really cool when you receive some insight into how you could act, what you could say, and then things work out well, like and didn't previously.
Right. Oh, okay. I mean, so John Vervaeke talks about this. It
I mean, where does that come from, Jacob?
right. John Vervaeke talks about, okay, you're trying to figure something out, so you start searching for something and you don't know what it is, and once you find it, you recognize it. He's like, well, if you didn't know what it was, how did you recognize it, right? And in a very real sense, I mean, these are the eternal questions of consciousness. And I would say that there is a form of prophecy that you could say anytime you have a bright idea, right? It is in a sense resting on you, and this is why
I mean,
actually
the
the
alternative
Jewish,
is I say I'm a genius. Everybody like I'm special. It's like no, like somehow this thing was
yeah,
somehow it was given to me, you know. It's like
and this is why unlike what the binary I think a lot of people think of in terms of prophecy, actually you'll see, for example, Alicia says actually Alicia says he wants to have twice the amount of prophecy that Elijah does, right? And it's like, well, how do you have twice, right? But we do believe in there being levels of prophecy, and some prophets speaking more clearly than other prophets and seeing more clearly, right? Um, And I mean, in a very real sense, you could say anytime a person speaks truth, they are speaking prophetically. You could say that. But I mean, it goes back to I've been remembering like the first time we talked when we were, and this was years ago. How long ago was that? Like 3-4 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely went and watched it again. It was just recently. It was.
Oh, I meant just on Discord.
Well,
I haven't gone back and reread it, but I just remember that, I when we started talking, and we started talking actually at Sally's suggestion because she's a wise woman.
Thank you, Sally.
Like I was very focused on the fact that when we communicate with each other, we often we have to understand the words that we use contextually.
Mm-hmm.
And how I understand a word and how you understand a word. I mean, Mark was on my channel on Sunday, and really it just got into a discussion where we were just understanding words very, very differently, and I didn't feel it was a productive discussion at all.
I listened.
What do you think?
It's almost like talking past each other. It's like, if I can try and understand your vocabulary and your views, then I can see where you'll make sense. And if I can understand Mark's vocabulary and his views, I'll see where he makes sense. And then I can see where you can begin to argue about, no, your words are bad. Stop using your words and use my words. Right? I think that some people end up doing that where there's not a willingness to go try to understand what they mean by the words they use. And that makes things hard. It makes communication harder. If you force me into your frame with your words and your definitions, that's where it's like you're asking me to put in the effort at that point. It's like, well, can you come into my frame and use my words and put in the effort too? Right.
I mean, and this was the thing, like I didn't feel the dialogue was going anywhere because, in a very real sense, I thought, Mark has his framework and stuff, and it wasn't like I ended up mostly listening.
I saw that. So how should we use these tools, Jacob? How should we use these tools to improve the sense making of the world? First of all, I'm going to ask that question, but I want to just say, Mark, he brings it out. One good thing he does is say, what is your purpose in this dream? So it's nice to say that, but and my general purpose is to try and produce words that will be like so good that it would help the most number of people possible. Like that would be nice. Especially in a public, we're doing this public thing. It would be nice to practice doing that.
I mean, yeah, but look, first of all, I don't know. Like you may be looking for a solution set that doesn't exist.
Maybe.
Right?
But maybe not.
maybe, but maybe not. But if I mean, again, like it does it. I don't think you can assert that there's a solution set that exists such that the two of us could say something that was helpful to everyone. That's not the world in which we live. And I'm not even sure that it's really possible that the two of us could communicate in such a way that it's even helpful to thousands of people. If it's helpful to hundreds of people, that's already, I am very proud of the things that have happened on my channel because they have helped any people.
Right. Well, you hopefully it didn't hurt anybody either, right? Along the way, it helped and did
Well,
not
I'm
hurt.
sure it's hurt. I know it's hurt some people. But that's a risk you're going to have to take.
But can we practice being the kinds of people where we don't hurt others and we help people?
No.
See,
This is the type of safetyism that like if you have this thing of I will never hurt anyone, right?
Well, I'm not
The
saying
only
that.
solution to zero people ever being hurt.
Practice getting better with the ratios, right?
Well, yeah, right. You try to get, but look, even if you don't get better with the ratios, and even if you have a really good ratio, like I have a good friend who's a cardiologist, right? His patients die all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would be able to sleep at that. I really don't know if, like, I don't know how he sleeps at night. His patients die all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's
got success stories too.
Yeah. No, I mean,
if he did not have the success stories, then we're talking about something bad now.
He's apparently known as being a very good cardiologist, better than most. So he does whatchamacallit, he does like coronary bypasses and stuff, and like he has a higher percentage rate than most other cardiologists, right? Even and let's say he was the worst cardiologist. It's possible, right? That there's one cardiologist out there who's the worst cardiologist. That's his capacity. Not that he's in any way being negligent or whatever. One person's going to be the worst cardiologist. And like the people who are coming to them, right? Well, generally, probably, I don't even know what the percentages are. Have you been playing with Grok 3? I've been playing so much with Grok 3. I've been loving Grok 3 so much.
Tell me more. I have listened to, oh man, the conservative guy with Blaze. He used it the other day and he recorded his conversation with Grok 3. But yeah, tell me more.
The surgeries result in death.
What's interesting about Grok 3 is that it's supposedly getting smarter each day.
I don't know about I don't know about it being getting smarter each day. I just know that it's usable to the point where I have been using it as a search engine. Although sometimes I've found it lacking. In the United States, the Society of Thoracic Surgeons reports that the operative mortality rate for isolated coronary artery bypass grafting is around 1.5 to 2% in recent years. So, and valve surgery can have a higher rate, 3 to 5%. Okay, so there's somebody out there who And apparently in the UK, the rates are much higher.
Mhm.
And when it gets to pediatric surgery, you could have 20%. Can you imagine being a pediatric cardiologist and 20% of the babies you operate
I think
on
so. I think this
die?
you would have to be a very task oriented kind of brain that focuses and can tune out things to be able to go in and do that.
Well, whatever it is, but I mean,
Well, there's a certain brain that can't handle it. To your point earlier, you said I couldn't handle it.
well, I
Right?
mean, look,
I couldn't live with this.
after the surgery's over, right? And the baby's dead, you have to ask yourself, did I make a mistake?
Not
And
everybody asks themselves that question, first of all.
well, yeah, but people who don't ask themselves that question are psychopaths.
There might be a lot more psychopaths than we realize if that's the case.
The psychopathy rate is about 3%.
There's people who become
And
numb.
Chris, yes, I mean, obviously, cardiologists, like, you don't operate on a baby unless the baby was going to die. So yeah, it's an improvement. And let's say you're a bad cardiologist, right? And 50% of the babies die, but there's no other cardiologist available, right?
Jacob, I see people making mistakes all the time and not caring to learn about mistakes being
Yeah,
made.
but that's because you have your mistake thing notched up a little bit too high.
Fair enough.
And that's actually one of the, so in counseling, the people who end up in counseling, one of the most common things you have to do for them is to help them notch down their intolerance of error rate.
Yeah.
Because it's debilitating.
Yeah.
It is very debilitating to be constantly, to be too focused on your mistakes, especially mistakes you can't really do much about. Which the fact is, I mean, depending on how you count your mistakes, but like, you're never going to be perfect. Sorry, not going to happen. Not in this life.
Right. You're right. Hey, so RJ said, so are we not going back to AI Jesus and Yosef IO? So that this was I had said if we could simulate a person, so you start by that, and then it's like if you could send that simulated person, copy that simulated person and send it out to people. That's the thought experiment. And then my claim was I think I'd want to simulate Yosef and send them out. I would send Yosef out before I'd send myself out if I could simulate and copy Yosef. And it's deep into the question we started with. It's like, there's a certain ratio of helpfulness and harm that each person can bring into so many different domains, right? So this is where I'm thinking I think it's a really interesting thought experiment about even like how to, rank order like trustworthiness and, and how to distribute trust and even the rank order the most important skills of all across most domains. Like if you could be of service to the most number of people possible without harming.
So I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I may have told it to you before, but I don't remember telling it to you before. And I love telling this story anyway, so you're gonna hear it. Sorry.
Hey, if it brings you joy, Jacob, then
this is one of my favorite stories. So the founder of the Hasidic movement was Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov. And he had a student and relative whose name was Reb Baruch of Medishbush. And Reb Baruch was an exceedingly wealthy man, and he was known to be a very stern person.
Mm-hmm.
And he had another student who was known as the Maggid of Mizrich, and the Maggid of Mizrich had many students. The Maggid of Mizrich was really, I mean, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and he had many students, one of which was Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was known, one of the epithets he had is Ohev Israel, the lover of Israel. He was known to be an incredibly kindly person. And the youngest student of the Maggid of Mizrich was the founder of the Chabad Hasidic dynasty, which is the dynasty that I tend to have an affinity for. His name was, he's referred to as the Alter Rebbe, which means the old rabbi, because he was the first. And his name was Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi. So the story goes that one day, Reb Baruch of Medeshbush, the one who was known to be very stern and rich, and the Kedushat Levi, the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, who was known to be a very kindly man, and the Alter Rebbe, who was the old youngest student of the Maggid of Mizrich, were walking early in the morning. They may have been walking to synagogue, but they see a farmer, and the farmer is wearing his talit, his prayer shawl, and his phylacteries, which we wear in the morning for our morning prayers. And he's behind a horse shoveling muck while he's saying his prayers. Mm-hmm. Now, this is clearly not the type of thing that somebody should do. It's considered disrespectful to the prayer shawl and the tefillin and the prayers and God, but he's saying his prayers while he's shoveling muck. And Reb Baruch gets very angry, gets very upset. And he says, if I were God, I would strike this man down where he is. So people would know what it means to pray before an awesome and fierce God. What it means to wear a prayer shawl and tefillin. Strike him down where he is. The Kedushat Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, gets very sad. He says, if I were God, I would make this man fabulously wealthy. And he would never have to shovel muck again. And he would be able to sit in a synagogue and say his prayers comfortably the way he should. The Alter Rebbe, who was the youngest of the students, spoke last. And he said, if I were God, the world would be exactly as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And look, God knows what he's doing. And he's created the world how he's created it. And it doesn't seem right to us. And it should not seem right to us. We strongly believe there's two teachings of rabbinic Judaism. Rabbi Akiva famously said, Kol derachmana avid latav avid, everything the merciful has created, he has created for the good. And his teacher, was it Reb Nachman Ish Gamzu? I forget, like what's. I think it's Nachman.
It would be funny if I actually knew the answer and could tell you, but
it would be. But I'm guessing Chezi remembers who I'm talking about. His he said he was known as Ish Gamzu because he always would say Gamzu Latova. This also is for the good, right? And so we recognize that everything comes from God, even those things which we don't like. That doesn't mean we equate the two, right? Gamzu Latova, he would say, this is also for the good, right? He wouldn't say this is good, right? Or Rabbi Akiva doesn't say everything that the merciful has created, he has created good. He says created for the good. There's a difference between that which is good and that which is for the good.
Yeah, that's the Genesis 1 where you've got the good and the so, and it all together is very good. It's all for the very good.
Right.
Even though each part of it is maybe...
Right. So the rabbis ask, and this is a shocking thing to most people, but I think it's what you're referring to. The rabbis ask, what does it mean, very good? Very good means, they say, Zu Yetzer Hara, I believe. This is evil. Very good, right? This is evil. Why is very good? Why does it require evil? Because if everything's just good, it's just good. But when you see it in distinction to evil, you can see, this is something other than evil.
I see what you're saying. I was thinking of something different, but yeah, that's a good point too.
A person who's never been in the darkness, has never experienced darkness, doesn't appreciate the light.
Yeah, that's for me. That's the pain, the suffering, the death is it allows you to recognize and identify. It can be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm highlighting my favorites here. RJ says, you should ask Jacob how AI Messiah could be Messiah ben Yosef or David or etc.
I don't know if well, actually, so this is one of the things I point out to Christians all the time. They ask me, what is Messiah? Right? Mm-hmm. What do you expect the Messiah to be? The spoon and the shovel in the temple were Mashiach. They were Messiah. They were Christ. They were anointed. The shovel that they would use to throw the so on the altar there would be a fire, and they would burn things up, and the shovel with which they would throw the ashes. Well, I don't think they would just throw them away. I think they buried them. I don't remember what exactly they did with the ashes, but that was Messiah. That was anointed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, there's the word anointed, and there's another word is like king. So it's
right. So specifically, 3 people were anointed: priests, kings, and prophets.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, all Messiah literally means to anoint. Anoint means to take an ointment, take like oil or something, right? And to and this was a ceremony that was done throughout the Middle East, not just in Jewish culture, right? You would pour oil on something to dedicate it, to say that this is something which is special in some way, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have a shovel which you're using in the temple, okay, it's a shovel, but it's a shovel for the temple. It's anointed.
Is this your final answer, Jacob, or RJ? Is that the intentional drink before some words, or the instead of words?
I mean I think that that should explain it, as,
All right.
as well as unless RJ has clarifying questions. I don't know.
Let's see, RJ. I hope I've made Gavin's Day better at least through all this effort. You have, RJ. Thank you so much.
The question is, where's Yon God?
He was trying to encourage me to heckle the hecklers. Yoav said you need to heckle the hecklers, and he thought there needed to be more joking. And I said thank you, and I think he made good points. Mm.
Yeah, so it's up to you. I know you have to leave in like another half an hour, and you wanted to speak. I didn't know if you wanted to speak online or offline.
Yeah, I think we should speak offline and just. I mean, I want to.
You can end the stream whenever, and we can talk.
Yeah.
Talk privately.
Well, maybe I think the reason to talk offline versus online, it's like I think you can have a more intimate relationship, like where you can talk about things that aren't meant for the public, in an offline conversation. So I think it's important to do those. So
this is one of my rules. I spend more time. I mean, it was a lot harder to actually enforce as a rule before, but I spend more time talking to people off the. I mean, I don't have to enforce it now. I definitely spend more time talking to people off the channel than I did before.
good.
But I had it as a rule. I would actually like hit people up and say, hey, let's talk, because there is a real difference between talking to someone one-on-one and talking to someone in front of an audience, as the blow up in the Oval Office showed the entire world on Friday.
Well, let's do it, Jacob. Thank you, everybody, and have a good day. I'm going to end this stream.